Let's say you live in some small city in the state of Florida, and there are crocodiles around. However, you're 50, you grew up in that small city, and you only saw a crocodile once in your life when you were 13 years old. It was on the beach, and the coastal guard came and removed it. That was your only encounter with a crocodile. However, past decades, there's been an increase in crocodile incidents in that small city. There used to be around 2 crocodile incidents a year, with some years no crocodile incidents at all. Now you have two to three crocodile incidents a week. So almost on a daily basis, you hear of people being killed by crocodiles or crocodiles trespassing, as they say it, into people's backyards. You have children that go missing, and people suggest crocodiles ate them, or or you have crocodiles just appearing in the streets, blocking traffic. So you now want to know how come that past decade the amount of crocodiles increased around here. So you go to the statistics and you realize, okay, it's 2022 now. Since 2012, the amount of crocodile incidents increased, more crocodile sightings. So you want to figure out how come there are more crocodiles around now, plaguing the community. But A, there's one error in your approach. The error is you want to know why the crocodiles increased. But here's the thing, who told you the crocodiles increased? In your perception, crocodiles just came from afar once in a while and they were captured and there were barely any incidents. That is not true. So you find this elderly guy in his 90s and he tells you this guy is also a veteran of the Second World War, and he tells you the following. Look, this is not something new. I'm 98. Within 2 years, I'm 100. And I can tell you one thing. There has been many crocodiles around this place forever. However, my grandfather, who was born in the late 1800s, when he grew up, they founded this town that became this small city. What they agreed to, the people back then, was okay, there are crocodiles around, we don't want crocodiles to just appear, and we don't want crocodiles to become a danger to our community, so we agree to slaughter a portion of the livestock and to drop the carcasses of those animals into the breeding ground of the crocodiles. So we locate where the crocodiles are breeding, and on a regular basis, we dump carcasses of animals we slaughtered. We drop the bloody carcasses over there, and then the crocodiles have their food. By doing this, my grandfather and also my dad, as well as other people of the community, they managed to keep the crocodiles at a distance. Why? Because the crocodiles got their meals handed over to them, the crocodiles had no need to venture away from their comfort zone, as we call it. However, due to the economic crisis that happened in 2008, many farms around here went bankrupt, and much of the livestock died. So there aren't that many farmers around breeding animals, breeding livestock, I mean. And because of this, we don't have that many carcasses anymore to feed the crocodiles. So now the crocodiles are moving around. And because they're moving around now the public experiences an increase. And this increase in crocodile exposure, they perceive it as an infestation. But there always has been hundreds of crocodiles, or better said, thousands of crocodiles around. The public just never noticed it because behind the scenes, the crocodiles were fed. Now they're not fed anymore, they go out for the hunt. Now, this is a parable, as you know. Now, compare this to what people are saying about narcissists. There is this popular view that societies have become more narcissistic due to the influence of TV or to the influence of social media, and that the way parents raise children, especially in the West, also contributed to this. Some say we need to go back to the good old days where you gave a smack to a child, or when you spanked a child and they were wrong. We need to go back to how it used to be in the 1950s and before. There are a lot of people today idolizing the past, saying things were better. Now look, what is the difference between the previous ages? Now with age, I mean, what's the difference between today and the time before the 1950s? Exposure. Due to visual media, later mainstream media, and also social media that increased since 2009. Because of these visual developments, we are able to see things that before would remain hidden. For example, in the 1950s or before, if a child was abused at home, the people at school, the teachers, would notice blue spots on the child. Some other children would also. Everyone would talk about it. The children would talk about it, tell their parents, oh, I saw little Johnny there with blue spots. The teacher would see it, but they cover it up. Nobody talks about it. Why? Because the moment they admit this child is being abused, they need to deal with the parents. And if the child has to be removed from the parents, now you need a foster home. But what happens to the parents now if they deal with the parents? If it's the father that's abusive and they remove the father from the household, the father's now loose and he's going to bother the community. Instead of beating his son or his other children or his wife, he's now on the street getting drunk, causing trouble. He may even attack random people he encounters on the street. Now people will say, well, just put them in prison then. Okay, but if they do this with one dysfunctional household, then you need to check all dysfunctional households. And then it becomes obvious that a lot of people are not stable. And what motivates children as well as young people to comply with society is the perception of stability. However, this illusion of civility can only work if the instability of the population is hidden. And in the past, it was easy to do this because for the biggest part of human history, there was no visual media. Photography does not exist. You couldn't record videos. And even if you could, later in our history, I mean, so in the 19th century, there were even tiny cameras that you could use to either film or something or take photos. You did not have the ability we have today to share it with hundreds of people, even tens of thousands of people. Today, you can take a picture, put it on Instagram, and it can go viral. Hundreds of thousands of people see it and are exposed to what happens. This does not exist ever before in human history. So, what happens is that in the past, it was quite easy to maintain this illusion of civility. This illusion of civility kept narcissists in check. Because let's think about this little boy that's being victimized at home. The community does not intervene. So the community now is part of the victimization because they allow it to happen. The little boy cannot defend himself. He shouldn't. The community should. Now this little boy grows up with mental disorders because of what he goes through. Also because when he opens his mouth, nobody wants to hear about it. People know what goes on, but nobody wants to hear about it because they don't want to be bothered. So now this guy, let's call him Little Johnny, is re-victimized by the group. And when he has mental disorders later in life, nobody wants to deal with that. So now this little Johnny faces he faces a lot of difficulties in life, not knowing why. Eventually, this little Johnny will figure out why it goes through so much difficulty. It is because he's a scapegoat. People don't want to deal with the instability of the community, and his father abusing him was a symptom of their instability as a community. So now they excuse his father because if they intervened with his father, they would have to admit that there's instability in the community and all the other instabilities would be exposed. And before you know it, nobody wants to be part of the community anymore and everything falls apart. So little Johnny understood, he's not little Johnny anymore, now he's John. John understood eventually that he was a scapegoat. Now, if John decides to submit to the Heavenly Father, forgive his people and move on, John will recover. But even when he goes through recovery, people will want to bring him back to the wounded state because they rely on him being in a bad condition for them to be at ease. And that's how society operates by default. The public, or don't say the community, sacrifices a portion of their own people who can't defend themselves just so that they don't have to deal with their own instability. So there's a portion of the people who are neglected, and that neglect leads to them being dysfunctional and defective, and now the dysfunction and defective is used against the victims who've been neglected, and everyone now looks down on those victims, agreeing that those victims are bad people who got what they deserved, and because that everyone else is at ease. And because everyone else is at ease, people are less likely to become toxic because everyone has ease. So if there were monsters amongst them, that means narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, whatever you want to label them, they will be kept in check. Once in a while, a reprobate, because that's how the Bible calls them, reprobates. Sociopath, psychopath, narcissist, those are worldly terms based on the type of reprobation. The Bible calls them reprobates. Once in a while, a reprobate would escalate and they would just arrest them or execute them. Now, due to the influence of the gospel, as well as the gospel being spread around more into people's face due to modern day technology, this monopoly on narcissistic violence by society cannot work anymore. Now, since the resurrection of Christ, open blood sacrifice has decreased in effectiveness. That's why blood sacrifice since the 3rd century AD has been performed behind the scenes. And the public was in on it. Now, even the behind the scenes blood sacrifices will not be effective anymore to keep the public calm. So what's left for the public? The public has only one option, that is serving the Heavenly Father. If they don't serve the Heavenly Father, there will be no blood sacrifices for them to keep them at ease. So either they get the real peace or they self-exterminate. Because the ease of society, which they achieved through blood sacrifice, and since Christ's resurrection, in most cases by both blood sacrifice and exploiting believers, that's over. That's what the Bible calls the end of days. The New Agers counterfeit this by calling it the age of Aquarius. It comes down to the following. Blood sacrifice has played out. Also, due to the exposure by social media and the internet, people cannot look away anymore and deny involvement. So now people are forced to deal with the instability of fallen mankind. The only way out is to serve the Heavenly Father, and then you have the peace of Christ in you. But worldlings, many of them don't want to change. They just want to keep on escaping. But here's the thing. Because there's so much advocacy on behalf of vulnerable people and victims who can't defend themselves, due to the influence of the gospel, because of that, there aren't enough victims around to victimize for the public to regain this ease. So what happens is the unrest amongst worldlings will increase, and many more will become time bombs that will go off. And the reprobates in the human population, they are now lacking a continual dose of narcissistic supply, and because of that, they end up exploding too. And that's what we're experiencing now. Not only are we exposed more to the instability of fallen mankind, the amount of narcissistic explosions also keep increasing, and people also record it and share it. So what's the way out of this? Serving the Heavenly Father. That's it. Think about the parable I used in the beginning of this audio message. It's not that reprobation, or what the world calls narcissism, psychopathy, or sociopathy, is anything new. Reprobation has been around since the fall of man, Cain being the first reprobate. The difference is, in previous eras, reprobation was kept in check through blood sacrifice, and the public was in on it. Now that blood sacrifices have played out and made ineffective due to the resurrection of Christ, and now due to the instant communication that's possible through modern day technology, we now cannot escape as a human species anymore. All the wars we had in history were all about relief. Now that the ease that we crave cannot be generated easily anymore, now the only option we have is the real peace. The world has ease, they don't have peace. For there to be peace, there must be safety and stability. That's something the world lacks. The only way the world can get stability and safety is by serving Christ. What happens to those who insist in the worldly ways? They end up exterminating themselves together with the rest of the population that refuses to submit to the Heavenly Father. That's how it is. So, don't fall for this narrative that, oh, society is becoming more narcissistic. Listen, the construct called society is narcissistic because society is a narcissist. That's why when you say no to society, you will pay with it with misery, misfortune, or you'll die because the people will make life hard on you. But society can always say no to you and deny you, and you just have to take it. Human beings need community, not society. Society is a narcissistic construct that adults comply with to escape challenges and difficulties in life. Community is a group of human beings living together, and because they live together, they have to deal with things together. So, society becoming more toxic, narcissistic. Society is toxic. What are you talking about? So, the illusion of civility is not working anymore. And the majority of the people, they want to go back to the times when the illusion of civility worked. That's why people saying, oh, we need to cut social media. Social media is bad for us. No, 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 no. Social media has become an outlet that reveals the instability that we as a species have been avoiding for centuries, or better said, millennia. And by the way, the exposure has happened, so you can't undo it anymore. Even if you would throw out the TV and your smartphones and stop using the internet, you can't reverse this. Because this is something set in motion by Christ himself. So, till the day Jesus comes back, you'll see this increase in narcissistic violence. Why? Because the reprobates worldwide are collapsing. And because of that, the public can't get any ease anymore. Just like in the parable I made in the beginning of this audio message, you used to have 2 crocodile incidents a year in that small city. Now you have 2 or 3 a week. That's going to be 10 a week. Well, similar days with the world. So that's why we are warned that perilous times shall come in the end of days. We were warned. Jesus even said it will be like the days of Noah, and it will be like the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. So sexually, the human population is going to be completely messed up, completely predatory. I'm not saying that every human being on the earth, when Jesus comes back, will be a sex predator or a sex offender, no. But sexual predation will infest the population like never before. So this is all that's playing out now. And the Heavenly Father lets all play out now, so that when Christ comes back and removes all those satanic structures from the earth, only believers will be left behind on the earth, and all the reprobates will be deported to the lake of fire. So don't pray against what goes on right now, the unfolding of evil. God allows it to unfold and to play out right now so that it collapses. That's what goes on. What we do is we walk in the resurrection power of Christ, and we endure and overcome the evil that's unfolding around us. That's how the Father is magnified and glorified through us. God has established his legacy of endurance and faithfulness that will last forever. And as a believer, we're part of that legacy. So, keep on walking by faith and be at peace.